The inflation dilemma. Prices are rising. Your dollar is shrinking. And no, it's not just in your head. It's inflation. Whether you're trying to retire in peace or just buy eggs without flinching, inflation is silently eating your future. Before we get started, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because understanding inflation isn't optional anymore. It's essential. What is inflation, really? Inflation isn't just an economic buzzword. It's the reason your paycheck doesn't stretch as far. It's why rents climb and savings shrink. But how does it actually work? And what causes it? Topics: definition of inflation, CPI core, CPI PCE demand pull versus cost push inflation, inflation versus stagflation versus deflation, real-world consequences, wages rents, food fuel, subscribe if you want to protect your finances from these hidden forces. The history of inflation. In America, from the Great Depression to the Great Recession, inflation has shaped American life for over a century. Historical case studies. The 1970s, oil shocks and 13% inflation. Paul Volcker's interest rate shock, 1980s, 2008 crisis, deflation, and QE post-COVID inflation, and 2020 to 2023 policy shifts. Why traditional savings accounts aren't enough. In 1980, your savings account paid you 12%. Today, you're lucky to get 1%. And inflation is eating twice that. Topics: real versus nominal interest rates, bank savings versus inflation, compounding losses from inflation erosion. Subscribe now for upcoming tips on beating inflation with smarter saving intro to bonds. The basics. Bonds are often called boring, but when inflation heats up, boring can save your portfolio. Key points. What are bonds? Treasury versus corporate versus municipal, yield versus price duration, and risk understanding. Yields and interest rates. Bond yields and interest rates are like dance partners. They move together, but not always in sync. Explained. Yield curves, normal, flat, inverted. How rising interest rates affect bond prices, yield to maturity versus current yield. Subscribe to keep up with market moves that affect your fixed income future. Tips: Treasury inflation. Protected securities. TIPS are the government's answer to inflation, and they may be your best defense. Breakdown. What are TIPS? How they adjust for CPI, when to buy TIPS, tax implications. Where to get them: Treasury Direct, ETFs, brokers, TIPS vs. I-bonds, which is better? Both promise protection from inflation, but they work very differently. Let's compare. Comparison table, return structure, liquidity, taxation, purchase limits, ideal investor profile. Subscribe so you don't miss our full I-bonds deep dive coming soon. Bond strategies in an inflationary world. Inflation is unpredictable, but your investment plan doesn't have to be. Strategies: laddering for liquidity, barbell strategy, bond ETFs versus individual bonds, active versus passive bond funds, duration hedging techniques, role of bonds in a modern portfolio. Even in a world of crypto, stocks, and real estate, bonds still matter, maybe more than ever. Explained: 60-40 portfolio and its modern adaptations, diversification value, downside protection, rebalancing, and income generation. Hit that subscribe button to stay updated on portfolio design in a changing economy. Advanced tools, TIPS ETFs, short-duration bonds, and floating rate notes. Don't want to buy bonds directly? No problem. ETFs and new inflation fighters make it easier than ever. Overview: popular TIPS ETFs, EGG, TIP, VTIP, SCHP, short-duration bond ETFs, floating rate notes, FRNs. Inflation-linked bond mutual funds, how the Fed affects bond markets and inflation. The Fed doesn't just move markets, it moves your wallet. Insights: Fed rate hikes and bond yields, quantitative easing, tightening expectations versus actual policy. Why inflation isn't always under the Fed's control. Global inflation and international bond strategies. Inflation isn't just an American problem, it's global, and so are the solutions. Topics: Emerging markets, bond risks and rewards, foreign inflation-linked bonds, currency risk management, how to get started, step-by-step for beginners. Ready to beat inflation? Here's how to build your own inflation-proof bond portfolio from scratch. Walkthrough. Open an account. Choose bond types, ladder, tips, funds, use of tax-advantaged accounts, monitoring and rebalancing. Subscribe now for upcoming tutorials with screen recordings and tools. Walkthroughs. Expert tips. What professionals do differently. What do hedge funds and billionaires buy when inflation rises? Here's how the pros play the bond game. Pro Insights. Macro fund strategies. Real return targeting using leverage responsibly. Institutional portfolio models. Common mistakes to avoid. Avoid these traps, and you're already ahead of most investors. Mistakes: ignoring duration, buying long bonds in rising rate cycles, overlooking tax effects, misunderstanding, tips adjustments. Conclusion: beat inflation, secure your future. Inflation doesn't have to be the villain in your story. With the right bond strategies and inflation-protected tools, you can fight back, you can grow, you can win. Subscribe now and join us on the path to a smarter, more resilient financial future. Inflation-proof. Outsmart rising prices, one strategy at a time.